Welcome to episode 92 of the LOTD Pod, the Left of the Dial podcast. Along with Richard, I'm Flick. How you doing, Richard?
Hey, hanging in there, buddy. How you been?
Not too bad. Going back in time, another time travel excursion this week, and
going back in time to the year before I had back pain. That's right.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah, I mean, a year of ups and downs for me, but a year that I made a friend, a longtime friend. And the year we're talking about is 2003, and that's the year that you and I met.
That's right, man. Yeah.
And in case anyone is wondering, that's not the reason why we picked 2003. It actually came up randomly. So, as fate has it, it's a year that we're, significant in our lives. And you and I met while working our DJ shifts at KRUI in Iowa City.
That's right. Yeah. And yeah, you had the shift before me, and I came in and I pulled out the stacks of tunes that I was going to play, and we bonded over Brutal Youth by Elvis
Brutal
Costello.
Youth, exactly. Elvis Costello and the Attractions. And I was very impressed because I always felt like that was a very overlooked album. So just having someone else, it was, for me, that was an easy one to bond over because, nobody ever gave it the time of day that it deserved, I thought.
Yeah, and I still put that one on. It's gold, and yeah, to meet someone else who was into it, instant pals.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And it does hold up. At some point, maybe we'll time travel back to that year and see where it ranks in our top of the year rankings. But this is the first time we've done one of these in a while.
The last year that we did, was that 1973?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so
so we're jumping ahead 30 years.
All the numerologists in our chat room are debating they're finding the signifiers.
That's right. We have so many more years to cover, and we'll eventually get there, I think. But yeah.
Wait. Someone's typing that the next time we do this show, we have to do the year 2033.
Oh, okay. I don't know if the time machine goes to the future. That's the tricky thing about our time machine.
Oh, okay, they say we can either do 2033 or 1943 to make the pattern. It has to stick to the pattern.
Well, and the other finicky thing about our time machine is it seems to only go to years that are in the album era. So, 1965 to present. That seems to be those seem to be the parameters of our time machine. It's kind of weird. It's weird how time travel works.
But yeah, tell me more about 2003. What was going on for you?
I mean, 2003. I don't want to get into, I guess, the bad things so much, but
it's a safe space. You can talk to us.
Well, I mean, I lost a grandma that I was very close to in 2003.
I'm sorry, buddy.
Early in 2003. And yeah, so I mean, it definitely was. That was definitely something that I did not, I don't think I ever got over that. But certainly not within the year. But well, I mean, yeah, not ever, never. But but there were some other interesting things that happened in 03. I mean, like we mentioned KRUI, and, we met and became friends. That was the year I started at KRUI. I'm not sure about yourself.
That was, I think, my third year I started halfway through my first, um, halfway through 2000, halfway through. I guess that would have been 2000 or 2001. But yeah, when we first started hanging out, the station was still in the farmhouse, right?
No, in the IMU downstairs.
Oh yeah, I think okay. So the farmhouse got demolished in, I want to say, like 2002, and then yeah, it was downstairs in the IMU. I like that little cubby hole downstairs and how people could kind of walk by and see you doing your thing, or even like
Or knock on the door. Yeah.
yeah, I like that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it was kind
but
of
I want
fun.
to I want to express I want to get nostalgic for a second about how cool the farmhouse was, uh, which was right around the corner from my dorm. I lived in Quadrangle, and it was, yeah, just a leftover farmhouse that the university had incorporated when it bought up a bunch of land, and it was creaky, but had a lot of history. And I think the station had been there since maybe the sometime in the 70s. And then the football program bought it and then squashed it because they hate all good things, and college radio and football just have to be enemies, I guess. That's just like Sharks and Jets, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, we both had shifts on Thursday nights, and I had my show, which kind of along the same lines of what this podcast is. In fact, my show was called Left of the Dial, and I had kind of a different format every week where I'd explore a genre I know one week where I did, it was Bruce Springsteen's birthday, so I did all covers of Bruce Springsteen songs.
Oh, cool.
And I'd have a power pop episode, and that sort of thing. Yeah, and then your show started after mine, and the rest is history, I guess.
And here we are.
And here we are. And I guess another thing that happened that year around the same time, because we were doing that in the fall, um, the Cubs were in the playoffs, and it looked like they were going to make it to the World Series, and that didn't happen. And I'm not going to go into detail about that. But that was not fun. It was fun until it was not fun anymore. And you know, now they've won a World Series, so that you can look back on those things and kind of think, well, it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah, speaking of the end of the world, like yeah, 2003. Definitely definitely a weird period of time where you start thinking about what are you going to do after college for me, and oh, and all the wars that we had just gotten involved with,
Right? Yeah. Yep. Those.
still going on almost today, whether officially or not. But yeah, it was a good time to be alive, and a good time to be in Iowa. I really enjoyed my time in Iowa City. I feel really bad for the, like, awkward indie rock kids like myself that um are there now and have to spend a lot of their time, like, uh debating whether or not they should punch Nazis in the face because they're Nazis again. Um, and yeah, I guess in retrospect, I had it pretty carefree.
Yeah. Well, a lot less Nazis. I think there were still Nazis.
They were there, but they weren't like emboldened by Donald
Yeah.
Trump to like come out and like show off their affiliations.
Or 45, as I like to refer to that person.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't really like that name. I don't even really like to use that as a verb anymore.
Yeah, I just feel icky. Yeah, same thing. You could actually bleep it out in post production.
Yeah, we'll see if I get around to that edit, but yeah, 45 suffices for me. But yeah, um, and anyone that emboldens Nazis, probably not worth mentioning.
That's right. But I loved all the music that we were getting back then, and you put together a very good playlist that I was telling you before we started rolling tape when we were hanging out in the green room, that the reason why I don't have a playlist this week is that I started mine, and then while I was listening to yours and all the things that I was kind of scheming on putting on mine, you totally covered, man, and then some. So yeah, you have a lot of picks on here that were kind of outside of my bailiwick, and yeah, yeah, good tunes, man. A lot of good albums that year.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you know, I feel like there isn't really a year that I'm not going to be able to put together a lengthy list of. 2003 might actually be one of the years where I have a shorter list, but hopefully it's still. I mean, it's 44 songs long, so it's by no means a short list, but I do feel like there really wasn't too much else that was getting left off. So, it's not I don't feel like it's a super strong year, but I don't feel like there's any year that's going to be all that weak.
And one thing that I want to remind our listeners of is that uh, back in 2003, yeah, there was kind of the Napster thing, which had kind of subsided a little bit, and the first kind of I remember uh, a young lady that I had classes with talking to me while I was sitting in the Ped Mall, and her being like, "You won't believe I got the coolest thing," and she brought out like the shoebox size iPod, and she's like, "This holds 9 albums," So that was just starting, right? But for you and me and most of the people that we knew or know, when a new record came out, you had to go down the street to the record store.
Yeah. I will tell you technologically, what I was getting into that year was putting a bunch of MP3s onto a data disk. And like it was the first time where I had a Walkman where I could play a CD, a data CD and not just a audio CD.
Whoa, fancy pants.
So, like I felt like that was useful. It's nothing compared to an iPod, but it did give me the ability to walk around with a lot of songs for the first time.
Yeah.
And
I always like the limitation of a Walkman or a Discman or whatever, where it's like, okay, you're gonna just hang out with one record all day. It's
yeah,
gotta be
either
good.
either that or carry a bunch around. And I didn't like doing that because I didn't want to scratch them. But then what I would do sometimes is just take a CD that I owned and then make a CD copy of it so that I didn't feel bad about scratching it. But I didn't like to carry around an actual um, you know CD that I bought or anything like that.
There you go. So if anyone in 2003 is listening to this record, you just got some pro tips on
That's right, on your
how not to scratch up your expensive CD collection.
outdated technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was something else though that came to mind about two. Oh well, on the downside again, a couple of things I remember about late that by no means is this a comprehensive list of people that we lost in 2003, but I do remember because they would be play a part in my show. Elliott Smith passed and Johnny Cash passed during that fall that I remember.
Yeah.
And the reason why I remember those especially, I mean, not that I would forget those, but how I remember both of those happened was it was weird that I played Elliott Smith. Just happened to play Elliott Smith on the night before I heard the news. Like I found out the news the day after that. And then the same thing with Johnny Cash, where it's just like I played him and on the show, and then the day after I found out, and then it's just I remember that being such a strange and sad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But on that note, should we go into the list?
Yeah. Let's jump in. Like what? I'll follow your lead, but I really like this collection. This is pretty substantial.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of go through the list and then expand on it. Where either of us have something.
How about you tell our listeners how to find this list?
Okay, to begin with, you can find this on our Spotify page. So if you go to Spotify and you search LOTD Pod, one, you'll be able to find our podcast, and you can subscribe to us there on Spotify, or you can subscribe to us somewhere else like iTunes or Amazon or wherever. But please subscribe. And but on Spotify, if you search us, you'll find our podcast, and then also, if you look under profiles, you'll find our profile, and you can find all of our playlists there.
Wow. All right. That's awesome.
Yeah, on that technology called Spotify, that allows you to walk around with an almost infinite amount of music wherever you go, on a daily basis.
That's right.
Much better than the data disc, um, the data CD.
I think there's a lot to be said for imposing limitations, but
Sure.
yeah, Spotify is, drinking from the biggest fire hose of music that you could imagine. Sometimes it just stops me in my tracks, and I'm like, what do I actually like? And then it's like when you walk into, like a Powell's Books or an Amoeba Records or something, and you're like, I know I have a giant list of things that I want, but I'm just overwhelmed sometimes.
Yeah. Because it's just like you think, even if I live to be a million years old, I'll never get around to all of this,
Yeah, yeah, wow.
or maybe a million. Maybe that's the cutoff.
Speaking of that metric, I think a thing that I like about 2003. I mean, not that I dislike about today, but 2003 bands were still making records in like proper studios, and you can really hear it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that was still a thing. Although that's a plus and a minus. Like it is good that because like you said, you hear it, and I like the sound of that as well. But I also like the fact that it's nice that people can record in ways that they don't have to pay gobs and gobs of money for too.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. As a sometimes somewhat serious recording artist, I hear that totally, but yeah, to hear like the production on this M Ward track, uh
But spoiler alert though.
whatever, but M Ward, who can get away with just putting a microphone in a room and then recording an album.
Mhm.
um it's it's so interesting to hear uh records where you spend a lot of time in a recording studio with a lot of these tunes.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is something kind of gone by the wayside. But yeah, I think we should just go into what's here before we give anything away. Um, so I guess like, okay, so most of this is going to be kind of a countdown, but the numbers don't mean everything. So I have a bunch of songs, that aren't. Okay, let me backtrack a bit. So the end of this list is going to be basically what I think are the best albums of 2003. And leading up to that is going to be a bunch of songs that I think are great, great enough to make my list, but the albums aren't. Some of these albums are great, but they're not albums that are my top albums of the year. So I'm going to start focusing on the songs that are not on the best albums of the year, and the order that they go in isn't the end all be all. They're just, you know, don't worry so much about where they fall. It's not so much a ranking.
I'm ready to rock, Sean. What you got?
Okay, so I guess I'm gonna group a few of these first because 2003 had some notable, um, I guess what some people might derogatorily call dinosaur rock. So I'm gonna start with just a few of those because I think Greendale by Neil Young and Crazy Horse, probably not my favorite Neil Young album ever, but it's a noteworthy one.
It's interesting. Yeah.
It's certainly interesting,
Yeah.
and so I definitely wanted to include some of that. Like I think it has some interesting things about it.
Really
Uh,
good tour too.
what's that?
A really great tour.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I included "Be the Rain" from that. Lou Reed had the Raven in 2003. I included "The Bed," and I think probably the best of these is "Reality" by David Bowie. I think that was a really good,
Oh,
really strong
good
showing.
record. Yeah.
Yeah, and "New Killer Stars," the song I included from that. So again, not rankings, but just wanted to group those together. Um, couple of songs here that I think kind of fit together. Starlight Mints, Brass Digger from Built on Squares, and Irving. Um, Irving was a band, not a person. The Curious Thing About Leather from I Hope You're Feeling Better. And the National. I think that was the year
The the,
where,
the Baby National. Yeah.
yeah, I think that was the year where they found my radar. And they had the album Sad Songs for Dirty Lovers in '03. Like I think they were pretty good from the start. I think this is their second album.
Something like that. For me, the band is I I like I like the band a lot. They're really interesting, but for me, I think they're pretty underbaked until High Violet and Trouble Will Find Me. And for me, those are the only two like really good front to back records by the National. And you can kind of see where they're going um leading up to it, especially with Boxer, but and then you can kind of see how they are trying to hold on to it with their last few records, which I don't think are good at all.
Mhm.
Um and but yeah, those two albums and yeah, like the song that you picked out, Murder Me Rachel, is definitely just like this clue that uh they're gonna end up doing something just timeless with these two records. And these two records are some of the best music made in the by indie rock bands of the era. Um so yeah, fun to glimpse back at the National before they knew how to do the National right, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean we've talked about before. Like they were more in my periphery at this time than they were later, and then like High Violet is, like I was still interested in it, but was kind of becoming less interested at that point. Like for me, one doesn't have anything to do with the other, but it just happens to be that like the bigger they got, the less I was interested in them. But it wasn't it wasn't so much because of that. It was just I think it was just because other things were going on, really.
Sure.
Um, Okay, so next on my list, a band that I don't think was on the radar of many at the time, or since certainly, but Duval with "I'll Be Around" from Volume and Density. Duval uh, is made up at least mostly of the band Smoking Popes, and I don't
Oh,
know
that's where
what.
I've heard of them. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what, if any, personnel changes there were, but they certainly don't sound any different. And I don't know. It's almost like it was just a name change, that they, if it was just a name change, like Smoking Popes are around now, so they might have just changed their name for a little while and then decided to scrap that. I'm not sure, but there isn't much of a difference in the sound. It's basically the Smoking Popes.
Robert Duvall was like, "I hate this band. I'm going to sue them."
Right? Yeah. I don't know if he has the legal rights to do that, but maybe he tried.
Well, if he shows up he's angry with you, he shows up at the door, like, yeah, okay, okay, we'll do it, whatever you say.
Yeah. Well, I would just say, Robert Duvall, you're an excellent actor. Out of respect for your acting ability, I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to call ourselves the Smoking Popes again. That's
Yeah,
that's
I
how.
think that's how it shook down. I mean,
Yeah, maybe that's exactly what happened.
yeah.
Could be. Could be. Next on my list, but again, not in order. The Mice with More Than I Can Talk About from For Almost Ever. Metric, Combat Baby from Old World Underground. Where Are You Now is the full title. Rancid, kind of a surprise.
Yeah, very eclectic.
Yeah. Yeah, a band certainly that had its most recognition about 10 years before this, but had a good song here. The song "Fall Back Down" from Indestructible. It's very it's kind of like a Cox Bar sounding song. Really cool. Really like it. Rancid's a band I think that can surprise you. Like a lot of people probably just lump them in with Screeching Weasel or whatever. And I'm not saying anything against Screeching Weasel; they're fine, But
Yeah, Berkeley represent.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, Rancid has a lot of cool stuff. I'm not huge into them. I don't know their catalog really thoroughly, but they definitely have a handful of songs I really like a lot. Stephen Malkmus and the Jicks from Piglib, Vanessa from Queens. Um, that was during the Jicks period, I guess. I don't.
Yeah, yeah, I
He
remember
doesn't. He
that.
doesn't play with the Jicks anymore, right?
Uh, the Jigs were J-Dub, right, from Slater Kinney, and
Janet Weiss.
yeah, J-Dub, yeah, and
Old J Dub.
who else was in that band? Let's look it up on the internet. I remember it being a pretty solid band. I remember seeing them in Chicago uh, right around this time, and yeah, I mean, yeah, cool, cool band.
Speaking of J Dub, Janet Weiss, I also have Quasi on here from Holy Shot. We'll say.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Just
That'll do.
keeping it clean. 7 Years Gone from Quasi. Really cool song. And that's Janet Weiss and Sam Coombs.
Sam Coombs, yeah.
Um, the Decemberists with Grace Cathedral Hill from Castaways and Cutouts. I really love that one. Uh, what's that?
That's what I'm gonna say about that.
It's a harumph.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you like. I don't know.
Is that more a comment on the Decemberists or the song?
I like the song a lot, but
Uh,
I don't know. I think I may have grown out of the Decemberists, but yeah,
See,
they were a
we're,
band
we're
for me for a long time.
we're probably not so much in disagreement on that because I love the song more than I love the band. Um, so in that way, I think maybe we're on the same page. But yeah, the Decemberists for me are one of those bands that probably every album has one or two songs I think are pretty good, and then the rest of the album I can kind of just leave it.
It's I like a lot of bands where, in the classical sense, maybe they're not the greatest singers. That doesn't really matter that much to me.
Hmm.
Um, it's bonus if they can,
Yeah.
but something about Colin Malloy always having like his mouth full of marbles when he pronounces
He has a
anything. Like
he
it's
has a
like,
very distinctive singing style, for sure.
yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I think his best work was Colin Malloy sings Morrissey. I don't know if you ever checked out that EP.
I happen to think his best work was Tarkio.
Well, there you go. Wow, we just really this is like yeah, like,
I mean, it
the
might be
diff track
because,
against yeah.
well, I don't know, but it might be because Tarkio at this point is like, I think all of this stuff is on a compilation, so you're kind of listening to you're not listening to maybe the B material or the C material, at least probably the B material, but maybe not the C material. So maybe that's why. But but I like the Tarkio stuff quite a bit, and I like it more than the December stuff. Um, Anybody that loves the Decembers right now is probably disgusted with most of us, but yeah, I mean, he has done a fair amount of things I like, Colin Malloy, but I'm definitely not a completist.
I
When it gets down,
respect I respect people that writing pop songs that are not as we've talked about before, that go outside of the bounds of the breakup song or the I want to ask that girl out on a date song, which I think it's just so sad when you meet new singer-songwriters or songwriters and that's like the only story they tell. And I think that um Decemberists, as much as I don't listen to them anymore really, but I do have some respect for trying to like push the boundaries of storytelling and
yeah,
indie rock. So good for them.
very very literary songwriting,
Yeah, like maybe to a fault. Like,
sure,
do you
to the point of pretension.
it's like are you just writing songs with the thesaurus open in front of you and then maybe you forget what the words actually mean? You know, uh
Sure.
it's
Well,
it's easy to be like, "Oh, this guy's trying too hard," but
for
uh,
instance,
yeah.
this song which we both like, right? Grace Cathedral Hill,
Yeah, yeah, cool,
but
cool.
has the word moribund. I mean, how many songs have the word moribund in them?
Yeah, that's fine. And yeah, he's I guess writing about San Francisco, and definitely a song that I'd prefer to listen to than Red House Painters.
Although there's some good Red House Painters tracks for sure.
Yeah, I just can't separate Mark Kozelek from his creepy behavior anymore.
Well, yeah, that's a different discussion, I think. But
Yeah.
as far as the music goes,
So yeah,
the separating the art from the artist, I don't think we have near enough time to go into that one. But
I'll uh,
uh,
I'll, I'll send you a box with all my Red House Painters stuff.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's probably best I don't know all of the details on all of that stuff, but I do know what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so another I think Pacific Northwest track here. A good amount of that on this list. It was a big time for the Pacific Northwest,
Oh yeah,
but the
yeah.
thermals.
Thermals. Yeah, right
Thermals
on.
with Back to Gray for more parts per million. Uh, Thermals are still around. I haven't. I don't think I've heard any of their really recent stuff, but they're still doing it.
Yeah,
And
I kind of lost track with them too. I lived in Portland for a long time and saw them a lot and um At one point, when my band had a little bit of a smoke, um, uh, Kathy, I believe her name is the drummer, came to one of our shows, and I don't think she liked it.
Mm.
So it's like my claim to fame is that like a couple famous drummers came to our shows, and you know that's like all we heard about it was, oh, they showed up. But I think she was like actively not liking us.
Oh,
I can kind of remember seeing a little bit of like a scowly face. I don't know.
might just be all in your head.
Could be. Yeah, I'm a very sensitive artist, so
Or maybe
um,
she was just so into it that you know, like, or she lost control of her facial expressions.
maybe we'll never know.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like, for all you know now, it was like the greatest thing that she ever saw.
Perhaps, yeah, she was really, really into that soft tag show. So, but yeah, I like thermals. I like that little set because yeah, I ended up kind of crossing paths with these people, whether bumping into them at shows and talking with J Dub about go betweens or whatever. A friend of a friend had her nose broken by Colin Malloy, so that was
Oh, geez. Okay.
yeah during his like stage diving era.
Oh, okay. So it
Um,
wasn't any sort of, this wasn't like another Red House Painters discussion here.
no, it
Okay.
was
Totally unintentional.
yeah ill advised, but yeah
Well,
unintentional.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. But, intent is very essential. And, stupidity doesn't necessarily equal intent.
yeah. So don't go stage diving, people. You're gonna hurt somebody. And anyway, carry on. I'm just a downer today.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, that does conclude, I think, the Pacific Coast, Pacific Northwest part of the list.
Yeah, and
Uh,
Malcolmus was living in you know this, but yeah, Malcolmus was in Portland, and yeah, that was yeah, good little set.
yep. And I guess veering very geographically very far away from that. Um, I one of the rare covers on this list, but uh, great cover of a stellar song. Joe
Yeah,
Strummer and the Mescaleros with the with Redemption song from Streetcore.
yeah, wow. And we lost Joe Strummer. That was that 2002?
Yeah, yeah, it was somewhere in there. It was definitely 2002 or 2003.
Yeah, I always love that guy, and I got to see him I think in 2001. Um, so that was really fresh. But yeah, his cover of Redemption song is just perfect. I love this song so much.
Hmm. Yeah, and let's see. From there, I have the Pernice brothers with the
Weakest Shade of Blue. Yeah.
weakest shade of blue from yours, mine, and ours. That's a track I remember on one of my first shifts at KRUI playing that one. Not
Such a
really.
cool band. Yeah. I love those
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, and they came out of the Scud Mountain Boys. Um, yeah, so not really knowing the album yet, but thinking, oh man, I hope this is good, and it was. Uh, yeah, so that's one of my first KRUI memories from that year.
Nice. Yeah.
From Cup of Sand, Does Your Hometown Care from Superchunk?
From our earlier discussions, this is really this song really resonated with me today. Um, I love this song. I love Superchunk.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Like sonically, I love the sound of this song, and I think it's especially good. Like this is one that when we did our summer songs, this was like one that almost made my list because it just has like a good sort of summer sound to it.
Oh yeah,
But
that band, pretty much every tune is,
yeah,
just something that if you're having a indie rock barbecue, you got to put on some Superchunk, man.
yeah, yeah. I mean that was a thing, like this. There was there was something else, that I mean, this summer by Superchunk is what made the list because it's more on the nose. In that case, it was one of those situations where I was like, yeah, this is where you go for an on the nose sort of thing. But as far as like just sonically something that fits summer, this is the track. Does your hometown care?
Does your hometown care? I want to nominate again. We've talked about this track before, but Cheetos and 100 proof Doritos on or martinis on the roof is uh, just such an evocative song about like it's hot outside, the sun's going down. You're gonna take some junk food and some booze up to the roof and like watch the sunset while it starts to get cool. I love that image that they paint for you, and always one of my favorite Superjunk songs.
Yeah, Superchunk are great. Um, track from Liverpool, the Choral with "Dreaming of You," a track that I remember lobbying to. I don't know if you ever played it, but I lobbied to get this one to get you to play this one because you did the all British show.
That's right, the Rock Shandy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if you ended up playing this one, but I remember lobbying for this one.
I'm sure I did. I have this record in my massive CD archives, and yeah, I'm sure I played it.
Yeah, great track. It sounds, it's basically like an updated take on like 60s garage rock. Really cool. And we did go through a stretch where everybody was doing that sort of thing years after this. So Coral maybe a little ahead of their time. Um,
Good job,
really,
guys.
yeah, way to do it. You did it. Uh, yeah, songs that were certainly huge to me, very irresistible. Even though I probably heard both of these songs too many times. The Darkness with "I Believe in a Thing Called Love" from Permission to Land. Love it because it has that again an updated take on something else, but an updated take on 70s glam rock. Uh, Definitely had that sort of attitude to it, and love the twin guitar solos, all of that stuff. Um, yeah, very very prevalent, but still great. Even though I heard it so many times, still undeniably great to me. And certainly, if you want to talk about a ubiquitous track from 2003, "Hey Ya" from Outkast. What you know the song. I mean, every anybody that lived through 2003 knows this song.
Everyone knows this song, and my attitude then is the same as it is now. That I thought it was so cool that a like real interesting outside band got such a massive hit, and it's a massive hit for a reason. It's a really
Mm.
good song, and I think I listened through it straight through today after not hearing it for a while, and yeah, just everything about it is just really cool. There's so many interesting layers, and it's a great song. It deserves to be a massive hit.
Yeah, and I think if I had control over such things, I maybe would have it not be so overplayed. Like that does hurt it somewhat, but it's still great. You have to be to withstand that kind of that kind of saturation. Um, okay, so definitely a lot less mainstream. The Fiery Furnaces from Gallows Bank with Two Fat Feet. Have no idea what this song is about. The lyrics make no sense to me whatsoever, but it's a cool song. The Thrills, a band that has come up a few times on the show, especially because, well, maybe just because, I don't think just because, but mostly because of our St. Patrick's Day shows, because they're from
Yeah,
Dublin.
that's right.
and and unique, because they are from Dublin, but have a very California sound to them. And yeah, and probably their best album. I think their best album, and definitely the one that put them on the map for me, was "So Much for the City," and the song is "One Horse Town."
I like that your set. I guess with the exception of the Choral, who appear to have some new tracks coming out, that little stretch is like, oh well, whatever happened to those guys? So it's like, whatever happened to the Fiery Furnaces? Are they okay?
I I
Should we go
think that
check on them?
Yeah, I think they had new stuff out like last year or something like that. I'm not sure now, but let me just let me see if something comes up quick, and I will get back to you on whether or not that happened, because I haven't heard it.
Oh yeah, they have a new single
Yeah,
this year
they had a
after
single
a little
in
bit of a.
2020.
My theory, Sean, is that a lot of these bands that were kind of on indefinite hiatus have new singles coming out because of pandemic and
Hmm.
quarantine. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's not necessarily like in the we need the money kind of way, but just like, lots of time on everyone's hands. So
yeah, but yeah, it looks like
another silver lining there.
yeah. So far, it looks like it's just a single from 2020, unless I missed something. Okay, so we talked a little bit about this before the show. Radiohead with "Hail to the Thief"
Yeah.
obviously didn't quite make my top albums of the year. I think it's a good album, but for me, the "Hail to the Thief" is a low end Radiohead album.
I think it's like the beginning of modern Radiohead. Um, the kind of like dark. Um,
Transitional Radiohead.
yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily transitional because I think Kid A and Amnesiac are the transitional records from like big guitar records to dark kind of beats and electronic um, stuff showing up a lot. I love this record. I think it's just far out and has scary, kind of glitchy songs like Mixomatosis on it, but then also some just like, a song like where is it? Where I End and You Begin, like just the album title, or I'm sorry, the song title, the song itself could have been, if it were like more guitar based, one of the big hits on the Bends or something. It's a really cool single as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't mention the title, but the song that I have on my list is "Two plus two equals five."
Yeah.
And it's definitely my favorite track from Hail to the Thief. And yeah, like I said, Hail to the Thief is not an album. In no way is it an album I think is a bad album. It's certainly a top 20 album for me, for sure, from 2003. Um, at the same time, I don't know if I'm rating it, like, it's weird because I don't know if I'm overrating it because it's a Radiohead album, or if I'm underrating it because it's a Radiohead album. Uh, Definitely the fact that it's a Radiohead album has a lot of bearing on it, though. That's for sure. And yeah, it's in the lower part of my, if I was going to rank the Radiohead catalog, it's on the lower end of it for me.
Huh. Yeah, I guess a lot of this record is kind of mixed up with um being in Iowa City and listening to this record around the time that uh people were really protesting the wars
Mhm.
and and uh some friends of mine had somehow like downloaded the advanced version of this album and just yeah, like listening to that just over and over. Really persistent album, and I listened
Yeah,
to most of it today and it's still just really cool.
Yeah, a lot of Orwellian themes, which worked well back then. Which is the times then inspired them to explore. I think the Orwellian themes, and works well now because
Because
I
it only
remember.
got worse.
Yeah, well, I remember Rudy and we did a Songs About the Future show, and this was the album. This was the Radiohead album I went to kind of find the song that worked for Song of the Future, because the times that we were living in, the times that seemed like they were going to go on forever, seemed to be going along with those themes, and yeah. And so it does hold up well. This album does hold up. I think maybe it's even better now than it was then. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't have too much bad to say. Because even if I say something like it's on the low end of the Radiohead catalog for me, that sounds like a slam at it, but it really isn't, because it's the Radiohead catalog.
Yeah. I see your point.
Yeah, so I mean, it's I'm in no way saying that it's right down there with Pablo Honey or something like that. But yeah, okay. So from that to a band that I think was about to take off, but not quite doing it yet. That's Ockerville River. Their album from 2003 was Down the River of Golden Dreams, and the song that I picked from this is It Ends with a Fall. After this, they did Black Sheep Boy and not this. Wait, the stand was it the stage names and then the stand-ins? I getting those titles mixed up. They had the stage names or the stand-ins, and then the stage names. I believe were the next two. Well, they were the next two, but I don't remember which order. You know, those are tough titles to not mix up. But well, I could just look at their page here just a moment.
Yeah, another band with a new album out.
Yeah, so the stage names was '07 and the stand-ins was '08. So a really good stretch there. That came after this. So this Down the River Golden Dreams is an all right album, and they were about to put out a stretch of really good albums. Ted Leo and the Pharmacist from Hearts of Oak. I have Where Have All the Rude Boys Go. Love Ted Leo. Love the Pharmacist. Sloan from Action Packed. The Rest of My Life. One of my favorite Sloan tracks. Have to get that on the list. Uh, the Jayhawks
I love
band.
the
I love.
Jayhawks tune. I was listening to it and I was like, why don't I listen to the Jayhawks more?
Well,
Thank you.
yeah. I mean, that should always be a question you ask yourself, even if you listen to them quite a lot.
It's
It's
because
like,
I'm listening
why
to
don't I
Jeff
do this
Tweedy's
more?
solo records, you know?
What's
Yeah.
that?
It's because I'm listening to Jeff Tweedy's solo records.
Yeah, but yeah, Jayhawk's a band I love dearly and have loved for most of my life. You know, uh, Rainy Day Music was the album that came out in '03, and Stumbling Through the Dark is the song. This was an album that was produced by, I believe it was produced by Rick Rubin. I'm not sure. Knowing Rick Rubin's reputation, I'm not sure how much work he actually did on it, or if it was like him giving his name to it as a producer or whatever. They probably paid too much money for him, is what I'm getting at.
You know, I think just my shoot from the hip um, observation about Rick Rubin is that I think you can do a lot by taking bands that have been produced too much and just being like, just don't touch anything. Like,
Yeah.
like you don't need a
Yeah.
horn section. You just need to play your song.
Yeah, and somehow he became very expensive by just stripping things down, and just not doing that much.
Because he was a time traveler from the future, and he's like, it's going to get a lot harder in about 10 years, guys.
Yeah, but all I know is I hope they didn't go deep in debt by hiring Rick Rubin. That's all I'm getting at. I just want the best for them.
Very thoughtful of you, Sean.
They're great. The Jayhawks are great. And anybody out there that aren't familiar with the Jayhawks or aren't super familiar with the Jayhawks, I mean, just some of the best sounding songs ever.
Okay, well, what is your starting record for the Jayhawks for people out there that are not as familiar?
Hollywood Town Hall is definitely the best one to start with for sure. Then from there, it kind of depends on what your tastes are, because so like for me, Hollywood Town Hall was the first Jayhawks record I ever heard. And then at that time, that was the new album that was out by them. And Blue Earth was their prior album, right? And so from there, I went to Blue Earth. Blue Earth is more countryish, and at the time, I wasn't too inclined to really be into that, but that album actually kind of started me down that road, and that was their second album, and their first album at that time was really hard to find any copy of it because they probably pressed like maybe a few hundred of them or so.
Oh, wow.
But I pestered the record store owner at Orfolk Jokopus Records in Minneapolis to dub me a copy of it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, cool.
And so I had a cassette copy of off the vinyl. And well, anyway, I'm kind of getting sidetracked as far as what you start with.
Reminisce away, buddy.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's okay.
But anyway, well, okay, so I guess for most people, like I think Hollywood Town Hall's the best one to start with. But then Tomorrow the Green Grass, which is the album after that, that is probably the most crowd pleasing album to go to at least next. Might be the one that most people should start with, but it's not the one I'd recommend. And so go to that one second, I guess, and then go to Blue Earth after that. That's what I'll say.
You heard it here, guys.
And yeah, then go to The Sound of Lies. That's a hard left turn because at that point Mark Olson wasn't in the band anymore, and they were definitely exploring a different sound. It was hardly country. Well, it wasn't really country. A little bit, little small elements of country in that album, but yeah, very good album though. Good songs. So yeah, there you go.
There
The
you go.
Jayhawks.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk more about them at some point because I would love to. Okay, so 03, Fountains of Wayne had a song that you're probably familiar with called Stacy's Mom from Welcome Interstate Managers. I did not put Stacy's Mom on my list because I think it's a fine track. It's a good track. It got played on the radio a lot and kind of got annoying because they made a big video on it and it was everywhere. And Fountains of Wayne were a cool power pop band from New Jersey. Hence their the name of the band is off of Wayne, New Jersey. Fountains of Wayne was a store in Wayne, New Jersey. Yeah, and Hackensack anyway is the song that I picked to finally get around to what the song is. But Hackensack, I love this song.
Yeah, I like it too. I've never heard it, and I think I have maybe like one Fountains of Wayne album in the archives. But yeah, there's a great line in the song about like everyone I know, they're off in like Hollywood, but I'm working for my dad doing like construction work, and
Mm-hmm.
that was really fun and good storytelling in this tune.
Yeah, I love the melodies too. Adam Schlesinger. I'm crediting him. I'm not certain he wrote this song, but I believe he did. But they had a way with hooks. They were just great at the hooks. If you like power pop, you should go check that stuff out. And again, Stacy's Mom. I don't really have complaints about it, but you know, it was just one of those things where that became the only thing anybody knew about them, and that was kind of a put off, you know.
Yeah.
The Cardigans. Speaking of a band that you probably only know once, Cardigans. You might know the song "Love Fool," but they were still doing it. You know, like that was what 90 late 90s. Love Fool, and they were still doing some good music at this point. But I don't think anybody outside of Norway or Sweden. I think
Okay.
Sweden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they weren't getting heard outside of Sweden at that point. And You're the Storm from Long Before Daylight is on my list. The Dirt Bombs from Dangerous Magical Noise. I got Get It While You Can. And uh, an album that I think this is kind of one of the landmark moments of 2003, really. But as an album, I didn't quite feel like this was a good enough album to make my list. But Fever to Tell by the Yeah Yeah Yeah, certainly a big moment, musically in the year. And Maps, absolutely killer track. Um, I don't love Fever to Tell as an album enough to put on my top albums, though.
Yeah, really cool band. And Karen O is still doing awesome stuff. Her album
Yes.
with Danger Mouse from a few years ago is worth checking out. So,
Yeah. And yeah, Fever to Tell, certainly significant. Not as significant, I think, as Maps as a track, though. I'll just say that.
sure.
Uh, Lucinda Williams from World Without Tears. Righteously was a killer track. Probably for me, for Lucinda Williams, I think Righteously is definitely a top 10 Lucinda Williams track for me. Um, Somewhere between 5 and 10. Not exactly sure where. Cool album, great track.
Yeah.
And Yes, then this is one I didn't have, but you added in, and I applaud the pick. Oversight on my part. Do you want to say what it is?
Oh, Out of Control by Super Furry Animals, but from their album Phantom Power, which, again, I think 2003, a lot of bands at the top of their game, including probably my favorite Welsh band, which is Super Furry Animals. So, um, songs like Undefeated, uh, the let's see, Golden Retriever is on this album, Liberty Bell, Sex, War, and Robots. Awesome, awesome title. And yeah, they came from Rings Around the World, which I could never really get into. But the next three records are, for me, their best, which are Phantom Power, Lovecraft, and Hey Venus. So if you need an entry point into this band, which can sometimes be weird, like too weird for people, and sometimes you put on a Super Furry Records animal or album, and you're like, they're
Super Furry
singing
Records.
they're singing in Welsh. I don't know what they're saying. That's fine. Uh, Definitely love Phantom Power, and it's an album of the time, talking about uh, war and the price of it, but saying so in like these really kind of like psychedelic, cool pop songs. Check it
Yeah,
out.
Super Furry Animals from Cardiff. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah,
Cardiff. Shout out to Cardiff.
that's right.
Shout out to Swansea too. What the hell?
Yeah, yeah. Why not?
I'll just shout out all of Wales.
Good people.
Gareth Bale. Shout out to Gareth Bale.
Yeah, the Welsh fans in the chat room are say thank you, thank you, but they're saying it in Welsh, so it's like all consonants. I don't understand what it says.
Shout out to Shirley Manson too. Anybody, all of Wales. Okay, so at this point, I have about 11 more, and they're from the albums that I think are. So this is basically my albums list. I have 11 albums. We'll call the 10th spot a tie because that's my way of cheating, I guess. So it's my it's kind of my top 10 as a cheat.
Yeah, tell me what's what.
Are we calling that fair?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So to begin with, let's go with Decoration Day from Drive-By Truckers. Again, don't put too much emphasis on where these fall, but um, just to give us a working order, we're going to put Drive-By Truckers Decoration Day at tied for 10th, and the title track from that is on my songs list here. Uh, Summer Sun by Yola Tango. That will be my another number 10. This okay. So here's another cover I have on my list. I don't know if I said there was only going to be one, but if I did, I lied, and I don't know why I lied. Why do I do that? I don't know.
I was going to point it out to you, but I figured it was just an honest oversight.
Yeah, but so the reason why so this is Yola Tango's version of Take Care. And the reason why I had to take the cover on this one is because it's the reason why I got into this album. Because again, this goes back to KRUI, and when I saw this album, I just took a look at the track list and saw a song, "Take Care" on that, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that's the Big Star song that they're covering here. And you know, I I don't know if it was on the KRUI playlist or not, but I played it to find out if it was a cover of the Big Star song, and sure enough, it was. And so, to long story short, that's where my relationship with Yo La Tango started because knowing that they covered a Big Star song, it wasn't really the first time I'd ever heard of Yo La Tango, I don't think, but that was like my entryway and to their stuff because knowing that they, especially back then in '03, I think now it's not so uncommon to see somebody covering Big Star, but in '03 it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And so knowing that they would cover that, that made me simpatico with Yo La Tango, and the relationship went on forever.
Yeah, one of the most consistent indie rock bands ever. I love those guys.
Yeah, and because they covered Big Star, they made me a fan for life pretty quickly.
Hoboken shout out. All right.
There you go. Shout out to Hoboken. Shout out to Frank Sinatra. Shout out to why isn't anybody else coming to mind? Shout out to Maxwell's. Maxwell's forever. Okay, so next on my list at number 9, I got "Someday" by Granddaddy. I got "Now It's On It" as the track I selected from that. Uh, love Granddaddy. They or he or however you want to term it had recent track out in the past couple of years, so it'd be nice to see more new stuff from Granddaddy.
Huh. Okay, yeah.
And was that a huh of I'm not sure I agree, or is that what was
It was
that?
like without looking at a lot of these guys, like I said earlier, like I my I just go like whatever happened to Granddaddy because they, you used to hear them talked about a lot, but
Hmm.
yeah, it looks like something came out a few years ago, so we'll check that out for sure.
Yeah, and it was good too. I don't know if it was a newly recorded track or if it was something that was left over from something else. I was never sure, but it was a good track. At number 8, and again, these aren't necessarily like an ironclad order here, but The New Pornographers with Electric Version. Loose Translation is the song I selected. Electric Version was certainly my favorite New Pornographers album for. Well, I think it still is. I think this is my favorite all time New Pornographers album.
Oh, that's bold, dude.
I know it's not the popular favorite, but it is my favorite.
Okay. Well,
And yeah, and the first one I ever had on vinyl too.
nice.
Yeah. Guided by Voices, band that we explored fairly recently, and an album that kind of putting together this list. I thought back at how underrated this album is. Um, it's not Earthquake Glue is the album, and it's not generally thought of as one of the top Guided by Voices albums, but it's a really good one.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to give that another chance because, like we talked about a few weeks ago, on when was that show 88? Um, yeah, they were coming off just like a real hot streak
Hmm.
of cool albums, and this one was kind of like where the song bucket had maybe not run dry, but I think some of the biggest hits were really leveraged in that previous campaign.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could use one more big gun on it. But but anyway, the song that I selected was "Best of Jill Hives." "Best of Jill Hives" is absolutely fantastic,
Yeah, really cool song.
and it has "My Kind of Soldier" on it. Great. Um, it has "Secret Star" on it. Great. Very underrated, but great. Um, yeah, I mean, it could use like another one of those really, really.
Needs a single.
Well, but I think "Best of Jill Hives" is a single. I
Needs
think
another single.
what's that?
Needs another single.
Oh yeah, yeah. It needs like a third or fourth single. Yeah. Yeah, that's the only drawback. But there isn't anything bad on it, and there isn't like there's no filler on it. It's all killer. Great. And yeah, just one I never think of as like one of my top five Guided by Voices albums or anything like that. Might be a top 10. Anyway, it just needs more love. That's all.
Yeah.
Death Cab for Cutie, Transatlanticism with Expo 86 is the song at number 7 for me, or the album at number 7 for me. Yeah, I don't feel like Death Cab for Cutie was ever quite as good as this. Like to me, this is where they peaked. But this was a really strong album, I thought.
Great. I'm glad that you like it, and I hope that I wish peace and happiness to everyone
See,
involved.
I left that opening because I knew that was going to be that. I was totally expecting that, but that's
Yeah.
okay. I realize Death Cab for Cutie is not like the coolest, band or anything like that. But I have to
It,
recognize game. That's all
yeah,
I'll say.
if people like them, that's fine. I will never find myself sitting around and being like, I want to listen to a Death Cab for Cutie record
Yeah.
right
Well,
now.
if there is one, it would be Transatlanticism. I say.
Pretty sure I
So
tried that one when
you probably
at the moment, but just that band has never clicked for me, so we can just leave it at that.
okay. But if you are going to start with Death Cab for Cutie, I would definitely say start with it. Transatlanticism. That's not
I would
necessarily.
say go get some Clash records.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that's aimed at you. I'm
Yeah,
saying I'm
yeah.
saying in general. Uh, yeah, I mean you're getting something different though. Like with if you're in the mood for the Clash, you're not going to you shouldn't listen to Death Cab for Cutie if you're in the mood for anything like the Clash. But maybe you're in a different kind of mood. That's all.
More power to you. Hope you're happy.
That's right. That's right. Okay, geographically speaking, I guess we're going back to New Jersey here. And it's right in the title, the Wrens from New Jersey. with the album The Meadowlands, and I forget exactly where in New Jersey the Wrens are from,
Uh,
but
isn't one of their records called Secaucus?
yeah,
I guess I just assume that that's where they're from, but
I don't think they're from either of those places, but they have an album titled Secaucus and an album titled The Meadowlands. I don't think they're from either of those places, but they are from New Jersey. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I guess there's no real quick way to find that out, but um, they are certainly from the state of New Jersey. And I have X Girl Collection from that album. Super infectious, poppy, hook laden track that should make you feel great about life. That's how I'll pitch that one. Because the hooks in that are just like just on the level of magic, I will say.
wow.
Yeah, I'm laying it on. I know I'm laying it on, but listen to it and tell me I'm wrong. That's all. Then at number five, an album that we talked about only a week ago, Frank Black and the Catholics, and the self-titled debut of Frank Black and the Catholics, and the track "Do You Feel Bad About It?"
Huh,
So,
yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
I'm in it's interesting. I do I like this song, but I think there may be something weird about when this album was made available because I'm pretty sure it did not come out in 2003.
okay, yeah. Well, maybe that needs to be researched.
Yeah, because I
Um,
remember having this album in high school.
it would explain something because he did have. There was an Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, this needs to be omitted.
Which is fine.
Uh,
I love this track and this album is totally killer. So regardless of what year it came out in, Frank Black and the Catholics is really cool. It's like when Frank Black starts writing songs that aren't meant for the Pixies.
yeah, so this is one of those situations. Spotify has it as 2003, but yeah, totally incorrect. Um, so there's another Frank Black album that Frank Black and the Catholics album that did come out in '03 is not worthy of a top 10. So, at any rate, what's happening here is this will get pulled from the list. That will make it an actual top 10 because I had 11 albums in here. So that all works out fine. So, yeah, just basically strike that one from the list. And I might find a different Frank Black and the Catholics track to represent them in the year '03, but not an album because it's not a good enough album to make it. All right. So number four, Transfiguration of Vincent, which was M Ward's second album, I'm pretty sure. And the track that I went with was Vincent O'Brien. Had a hard time not going for Helicopter. I really love Helicopter off of this. But went with Vincent O'Brien because it's just too good not to do. It's too good of a track. But you know, having competing tracks like that is the reason why this is one of my top albums of the year.
It's a good one.
I guess back to the Pacific Northwest there,
Sure.
and yeah, and number two, the Shins with "Shoots to Narrow," again a sophomore album. "Kissing the Lipless," my favorite track off of that.
Yeah, that was a fun band, and I think uh, this album has a lot of significance for me because my second night after arriving in Portland to live, I ended up living there for about a decade, was kind of like an end of an era in terms of concert going for me. I remember staying at a youth hostel before I found an apartment, and a bunch of us going to see the Shins play at the Roseland. and just walking up to the door, handing someone $20 and getting a ticket and going in. Um, you know, going up to the box office and handing someone $20. And that's the last time I've ever been able to do that with like any band that isn't just like a bar band. Everything after that, it seems like every single show is sold out like 4 months in advance. And if you don't get a ticket, like the second day it goes on sale, you're just not going to get a ticket. I don't know what it's like where you live, but that's what it's like here. So,
Well, I mean, where I live now, yeah, certainly. Actually, I've seen I've seen Cracker here, and walked up and paid for it on the night. Saw old 97s, paid for it on the night. Yeah, it's pretty easy to do that here. I can remember doing that in Chicago somewhat recently, but I can't remember who I was seeing.
but anyway, it was really, nice to think back to that. And I also want to mention that you should probably watch the episode of Gilmore Girls where the Shins make a cameo appearance during the spring break episode, and then you should probably watch the rest of seasons 1 through 6.
Okay, that I'll put that on my to-do list.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, Shoots and Arrow is great. I feel like this is where the Shins peaked, though. Like after that, there was some good stuff, but this was just an absolute killer album. And they never, at least as far as I'm concerned, never made it to that level again.
Yeah, yeah.
So that brings us to number one, and I guess I'll recap this now because of our shift in the list. So for the albums at number 10, Drive By Truckers, Decoration Day, and then number 9, Summer Sun by Yo La Tengo. Number 8, Someday by Granddaddy. And by the way, that's Someday, Sumday. Electric Version by the New Pornographers at number 7. Earthquake Glue by Guided by Voices at 6. Transatlanticism by Death Cab for Cutie at 5. The Meadowlands by the Wrens at number 4. Transfiguration of Vincent by M. Ward at 3. Shoots the Arrow by the Shins at 2. And at number 1, drum roll please. Elephant by the White Stripes. My favorite White Stripes album. Kind of by a lot. Like I like all of the White Stripes albums, but really love Elephant especially.
Yeah,
And
it's got some big hits on it.
yeah, and of course everybody knows Seven Nation Army. I didn't feel the need to include that as my song, but included Ballin' and Biscuit. But could have gone a few different ways. Hardest Button to Button is great. Girl, You Have No Faith in Medicine. And then I didn't want to start off the list with like one of the more tender tracks, but there are some good ones here. You've Got Her in Your Pocket is a great track. Want to Be the Boy to Warm Your Mother's Heart. Yeah, not necessarily the best way to start off a playlist. Great tracks though.
Well, there you have it. Those are some really, really cool tunes, really good albums, and yeah, the Wayback Machine was fun to get back there to 2003 for a second.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened. Not all of it good, but some good music.
That's right.
All right. Well, yeah. So I guess that wraps that up, and we'll be back here next week. Not sure what we're talking about yet, but we'll have something.
Yeah, some suspense there, and yeah, like Flick mentioned at the top of the show, you can find these playlists by searching for LOTD Pod on Spotify. And you can also listen to our exciting earlier episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is episode, what, 93? 92?
92. Yeah.
92. So we have 92 of them. 91 other than this one. So, dig in.
Yeah, it's only about 200 hours of listening. So if you're going on a car ride or taking a train, the Trans-Siberian, you can get caught up.
Yeah, with the length of some of these episodes, it might be over 200 hours at this point.
Yeah, so the CD box set, you can pre-order it from. Anyway, we'll stop goofing off and let you get about your exciting day. I'm sure there's some obscure Olympics to watch right now.
Yeah, we can all go back to the present time now.
Oh, we're back. We're back in 40. Feels good. Okay. So yeah, Sean, this was a blast. Always good to hang out and talk about music, and we'll do it again next week. Okay, buddy?
All right. We'll see you next week.